Hi and welcome to Dynamics Update. We are at the start of September, and the reason why we're here is that we would like to talk a bit about 10.0.37. And we are, as usual, me, Johan Persson, and my colleague Gustav Sundblad. Hello, Gustav.
Hello, Johan. Hello. How are you?
I am fine, thank you. It's a hot September, so that's nice. But it's good that work has started again, and we are off to a great start.
Back to routine. Yeah,
exactly,
that's good.
Exactly. So let's get started with 10.0.37. And one thing I noticed was actually that it's not very full of new things.
No.
I'm guessing sort of that maybe there has been a lot of issues that have been fixed instead, but rather than
You're
new.
so pessimistic.
No, I'm not pessimistic. I think it's a good thing. Fixing bugs is good. So
absolutely, I totally agree. It might absolutely be that case that it has been a lot of bugs, and they kind of re-released version 36 preview as well. So possibly that, but also I had the same thought actually. I was like, yeah, I'm preparing for this podcast. It's like, okay, it's usually that you have to pick these few things out of a long list of very nice features. But now it was kind of, well, it's lightweight. And then I was like, oh, nothing coming in this release. But then I thought again, first of all, it's a good thing because it means that, well, we can do minor stable releases as well. And as you say, probably bug fixes. It's a lot of things that are actually coming in as well. So just that the list is shorter doesn't mean that the business value is less. I hope, at least.
No, but actually, I actually had a discussion with a colleague around this, and it might be a good actually point to make in this case that there are a lot of things that have been fixed over the years with FNO, and most of the mainstream features and bugs in mainstream features have probably been fixed and handled. Yeah. And if you find bugs now, you should probably come to the conclusion that you are probably using like a niche scenario for the product, because otherwise it would, if all of the people in the world were using it, it would probably have been fixed by now. And one reflection that I've also made is that we are actually seeing new functionality rather than like things that are already that were already available in 2012. Because I heard you say that before, that there was actually a headline saying 2012 features that has been postponed.
Yeah. I noticed that was a very nerdy read when you get stuck, or as you do, get stuck on Learn, of course, as everyone does. No, but it's reading through the notes. It's fun. It's relaxing. But I ended up reading the not deprecated features. The title is really features that were scheduled or meant to be in AX 2012 at the R3 release that were not. So they were probably pushed into 365 or AX7 Rainier, as it was called back then. And it was fun to read. Fun. Well, I can imagine that meeting where it's like, okay, we have these 20 features. Sorry, guys, we're not going to do them now. We're putting them in the backlog here. And it's like 17 out of these 20 are like status will not be implemented. It's done. So it never came to be in many cases. But also, to be fair, a lot of these features are there, but not as they were planned to be implemented. The business issue that they were meant to solve have been solved differently, which makes total sense because it's a different platform, different product a little bit. But it's just fun to see sometimes. And also sometimes, sometimes you Google, you want to find something on Learn. What is this? How does this work? And then you read and it's like, interesting. Oh, I didn't know this. And then you figure out, oh, you're on Business Central. You're not on operations. So I didn't know it worked that way. Oh, okay.
Do we have this feature? I didn't realize
they're so similar, right? It's very easy to find. So, and it's fun, but it's a very as we've said many times before, it's a very extensive documentation, and it's a trick to just be able to find how it works, and it's very good. So I'm happy about it. Much better than the old CHM files that you could or could not import, and maybe they had content and maybe they didn't.
Yep, exactly. So let's get started. What's first on your list?
As always, without like in prioritization inbound here, I start from finance and then go through commerce. But from a finance perspective, I have two minor ones. Many different. This is a very, very nerdy thing if you don't like it, but it's the ISO 222 new versions for payment reporting or payment bank statements, basically. PAIN files. I think it's very, very ironic that some of the payment report, like the credit transfer files, they are actually called PAIN. So fun. They cause a lot of pain in the implementation, and they are actually called PAIN. But a number of different formats released on the newer versions. And it's very helpful nowadays that you can actually, even though every bank has their own format, you get a lot of time reduction by looking at these standard formats in ER and the way they can be used to not maybe 100% automate out of the box many cases, but at least streamline the process of exchanging information between you and your bank or treasury provider or whatever you call it. So make sure to read up on that to see what is coming and what is there now, because it's a lot. One more thing while I'm on a roll here, I just noticed it on the accounts payable side that there's a feature in 37 that lets you control the mandatory status of the approved by field on the invoice register. And this can be set as optional when formal approval isn't required. And it's a nice feature, just set a field to be not mandatory. I bring it up because it has been a pain point in some integrations I've seen before with Invoice Register, because you have an integration coming in and not necessarily do you know who the user is sending it to you from that different system. So like everyone has always solved this by setting up a specific like a system user or system integration user, and that's the one who approved the invoice. Makes a little bit more sense to put the approval later downstream in the process, so you can actually build some workflow around it. So it's a nice feature just to simplify things if you don't need a formal approval on the invoice register process.
Yes, and the reason why I was so quick to jump in was because my first feature is actually also related to files being sent somewhere, and it's to one of our neighboring countries, Denmark, where we have gotten a feature for sending tax submissions, VAT declarations to the Danish tax agency. And so that actually exists for a lot of other countries. I've been setting it up for UK at one point and so on. But the reason why I want to bring this up is that is actually why one of the reasons why I think electronic reporting is such a cool functionality or a cool framework, because first of all, it helps you build the actual file. So you can actually build a template. You can set up rules for how to populate the template. You can actually modify an existing template and build different rules on it and actually populate it with other data if you want, if you have customizations, for instance. But not only that, you can actually also use it to actually send the file over. So in those cases where there is an API at the other end, for instance, in this case, the Danish tax agency, F&O will actually contact the Danish tax agency, make sure that you have a secure connection. You need to validate it. You need to sign it when you set it up, so you get this like a session key in some way. But if that is set up and working, then you actually don't manually need to send it. You can actually just, when you have created your VAT declaration, you can just click the button and send it, and it will be sent automatically from within F&O without having to download the file, uploading it to an FTP somewhere and whatever. So that's really cool.
Really cool. Yeah, absolutely. They really went all the last mile there as well to deliver it to the tax authority. I wonder if they do that for all countries, or if it's that AX was born in Denmark.
No, it's actually not for all countries. I know for a fact that it exists for Great Britain And now for Denmark, there are probably other countries as well, but I also know that there are countries where this is not the case, where in some cases we actually do need to use an ISV to get it done.
For tax reporting, yeah, I know. And I mean, there are other scenarios, not necessarily tax, but with tax authorities that are solved by the e-invoice add-in, as we've seen in many in other presentations before, that like the integration with authorities to get approval of doing invoicing, which is coming like a storm all across the world, basically, that you need to build these integrations. In some cases, very complex integrations where you need to do a number of steps before you're allowed to send this exchange of documents to a customer or a vendor. That add-in solves it, but in this case, it seems that it's out of the box within F&O, which is of course easier to sell.
Yep.
Cool. So I had another one. I think, speaking of what we mentioned before, that the release notes, I think in every release now, it's so fun to see that minor improvements, in some cases major improvements, of course, to the warehouse management, the mobile device app. I think we brought it up last time with a number of sessions ago, with location directives and the way to like reroute using the mobile app. One of the functionalities, there are more. One of them is to automatically update documents when receiving purchase orders. This is coming in 37 as well, where previously, when you've done the actual process of receiving orders, the status of the lines is set to registered, and there was a manual step there to kind of really automate the actual posting of the receipt, so you get a financial update. Now that has been, or it's possible now to automate it fully, so you can get the receipts posted, so you get an actual received PO.
Yes. All right. So my next one is actually not the feature that is in this release. It's actually features that has been there for a little while. The reason why I brought it up, because two of my MVP colleagues actually wrote a blog post about this in the week. So Hylte Brista and our good friend Andre wrote this collaboration blog post on how the feature recommendation notifications actually work in F&O. And the reason why I wanted to bring it up, because first of all, I wanted to promote this blog post since it's very useful, but I also wanted to mention that I think it's a very cool idea to have a feature recommendation notification in the product, meaning that there is actually a mechanism for alerting users to new and important features that they really could use. So if you do things in F&O which are related to a feature that has not been enabled, it actually tells you that in this case, you should probably try to enable this feature and see if that makes things easier for you, if it actually works better.
I think that's really cool, and I think we discussed it a little bit before as well. I mean, the reason, of course, is to make sure that if Microsoft releases a feature, let's say for the one we discussed before as well, the feature to automatically clean up job history, for instance, that's something that improves both from the client side or one running the system, and from Microsoft perspective, from a platform perspective, it's an improvement. So, and I guess here, or maybe how the reasoning went and how to add this feature recommendation, because the notification doesn't go necessarily to the admins, it goes to the users in some cases. So maybe they looked at telemetry and they said, okay, admins are not turning this feature on, we need it on, let's go to the actual users so they can put some weight on the admins as well. So now you don't just get the admins and the test leads going to activate features, you actually get all the business users as well. But it's really it's a very nice little thing, and it's more important to know, because otherwise you might get it as a support ticket, people wondering, why is this banner coming up, what should I do with it? It's important to inform about it.
Yes, I think so as well.
Totally agree.
Yes.
And speaking of features, we've discussed before as well, it's not only like new features, deprecated features, it's about state changes of features as well. Another topic on every release calendar that you need to be mindful about are state changes of features, going from well, off by default, going to on by default, and then into mandatory. Pretty much the life cycle of a feature, unless it becomes disabled, as with the API limits. So it's an important list to look at. And I mean, if you do your testing rigorously as you should, then hopefully you've tested on this feature setting anyway. But be mindful that features are being turned on, even if you don't make an active decision to do it yourself. One of them that's coming online now is the calculate line net amount on import. It might have been actually on by default in 36 as well, but it's important to look at it because what it does, it handles specific integration scenarios, specifically for sales order import. So if you use data through the sales order lines or quotation lines or return order lines entities using OData or dual write, or I mean, just using the entities, it will control whether the system would recalculate the totals or not. So in some integration scenarios, you might want the sending system to send you the actual total amount because you want to ensure that it's what they saw is also what's going on the invoice. You want to avoid scenarios of dynamics applying other sets of maybe discounts due to like issues with master data. But you still need to ensure that the logic is valid. So this feature might disrupt your integrations if you're not careful, because previously it didn't recalculate. So as soon as someone went in and maybe touched the line a little bit, then it recalculated and the totals went off. So worth putting a little bit of time if you have integrations using sales orders or sales orders composite entities. Invest some extra time in validating that the totals match, not only that the integration is importing the lines.
Yep, that's really, really nice. So I actually don't have anything else, but I have a short like public service announcements before I'm done for today. And that actually is something that was raised by one of my colleagues, which I didn't mention at the start of the show. And that has to do with bugs. So like every other company, when you send in a bug, there is a prioritization process. And the prioritization process lets Microsoft know which bugs to work on next. Because if they are higher up in the priority, they are being worked on. If not, then they're not being worked on. So what you need to figure out here is that if you find a bug in issue search that you are experiencing, then your first thought might be, okay, so it's already in issue search. I shouldn't register it because it's already been done. Someone has already sent it in to Microsoft. But you should probably do exactly the opposite. If it's already in issue search, you should register it again, and you should force Microsoft support to link it to that issue that is already in issue search, because if they do, then that will get a higher rating in the prioritization backlog, and that will make it more likely that it's actually fixed.
Yeah, makes total sense. And it's not about like tricking the backlog. It's about communicating to Microsoft that this is an issue, maybe more severe than they know. So it's, and I think speaking for them, I think they want to know that. So
exactly. And yeah, so I think it's important that we all actually send in support cases, because I mean, if we're looking at coming from an AX 2012 background, the gut feeling is often, we don't send anything in, we fix it anyway by ourselves because it's going to take too long. So the thing is that even if you do fix the bug, even if it's urgent and you do fix the bug, send it in anyway, because I mean, if you're lucky, then Microsoft will fix it as well, and you can actually go in and remove your code and have Microsoft fix in place instead, because that means that you have a couple of lines less that you need to support for all eternity.
Yeah, exactly. Makes total sense.
Yeah.
I actually have one more final item here. I'm not going to go into depth about it. It's a favorite topic of mine. Visibility app, the inventory visibility add-in, which gives you Onhand, but not going through F&O. So it's microservice. You can read up on it. It has a lot of good features and functionality. What's new here is the integration with commerce, and specifically the CSU, which is a very, very cool thing for me, because I see a lot of scenarios where there were some like fringe integration scenarios where we touched upon commerce before as well, but the Onhand replication was coming from F&O, so you needed the transactions to come in. Now we're looking at pure integration between CSU and visibility app, so you can actually leverage a lot of scenarios where you might go live with the pools set up first, but you don't necessarily have inbound operations in ERP. Then you can still provide your sales channels with actual, I'm going to say near real time again here, but accurate on-hand data, which is a very, very key component in many retail scenarios and B2B scenarios as well, of course, to limit short selling and short picking in this case as well. So it's very cool integration. It's in preview a little bit. I think there's a public preview now in September. So if you haven't played around with visibility and you have these needs, I implore you to try it out in your nearest tier 2 environment.
Yes, I think that's as good a point as any to end this evening's podcast. So with that, I think we say thank you everyone for listening, and have a nice time till the next episode. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Take care. Take care, everyone.